Hope you're having a great Friday. Coming to you live from northern Israel, where the talk of the ceasefire is pretty much on the minds and in the general political zeitgeist of the people since pretty much the whole week. And this is a country where people tend to talk about politics quite a fair amount for obvious reasons, especially when it comes to things like, things related to wars and things, because it affects people a lot more directly than like a foreign war fought by the United States where the troops are thousands of miles away and most people in the country don't even know any soldiers. Here, people not only know soldiers, most of them have been through the army, so they have been soldiers themselves. And this particular war started in a way that affected most people either 1 or 2 degrees, or at most 3 degrees separation away. So either know someone or someone, or know someone or know someone who knows someone, or know someone who knows someone that was directly affected. And this war has been pretty much playing out exactly as I've been saying from the very beginning, right? Like literally from the day it started. I said it would not end the way that most people think. I said that Bibi was basically responsible for failing to defend Israel. He ignored the warnings. His top military brass ignored the warnings. Not everybody in his cabinet ignored the warnings. There were people who said that he should not ignore the warnings, but he did. And a lot of his generals ignored the warnings from lower level intelligence officers, and he ignored the warnings from the government of Egypt, whose ambassador had given him warnings that something was going to happen imminently. And he basically was using the military forces to focus on the civil unrest between the left and the right of the political sphere, who had been protesting and demonstrating against each other about the judicial reforms that he wanted, and to deal with events happening in Judea and Samaria on the eve of, basically just after the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, on Simchat Torah, another high holiday, 1 week after Yom Kippur. The war was launched pretty much exactly to the day, 50 years after the Yom Kippur War started, in October of 1973. And normally in Israel, around the time of the high holidays since 1973, security is amped up in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, or around Gaza, because precisely of the type of threat that happens to be very real, and because of the thought that that is a day, it's a period of time when there is likely to be some kind of an attack by the terrorists and the enemies of Israel in general. And so I said he's going to use this war to extend his political life, to stay in power as long as he can in order to avoid facing accountability for the many things that he had to face accountability for, his personal legal issues, and for failing to do the one thing that he built his entire political career on, which was to protect and defend Israel and the people living in Israel, whatever nationality they happen to be. And he absolutely failed, objectively, in every way. Now, that doesn't mean I hold him responsible for causing the war to happen. He obviously did not cause the war to happen, but he failed to defend Israel when it started. Do I hold him responsible for the war happening in general? No, Hamas launched the war. Okay, there's no question about that. But the point is, now we have this ceasefire deal. And it's pretty much exactly what I said would happen. You know, even if Trump were to win the presidency, which he did, what you would end up with didn't matter if Trump was coming into power again or if Biden or Harris would come into power. If Biden would stay in power or Harris would, come into power. It didn't matter. Because either way, you're going to get a bad deal at the end of the day, because outside forces do not want this conflict to end. And sadly, neither do the leaders of Israel or of the Palestinian people. They don't want the war to end. You have to remember, first of all, let's start with the Palestinians. They are a very tribal, feudal people. 100%. They are still very tribal and feudal. That is how they behave in terms of like how their power structures are built. And that's how they operate. Hello. Hello from Russia. Hello, Russia. Hello, USA. Nice to see you all here. This is a bad deal on many levels. Pretty much on every level, okay? Now I'll start with the Philadelphia corridor. In theory, this deal gives Israel the right to re-engage, if need be, with the full support of the United States, with arms and political support, etc. And in theory, this deal gets, in its first phase, some 33 hostages back home, most of whom are supposed to be alive, some of whom probably not. But there's no guarantee that it will happen. And in exchange, the Palestinians will see 1,000 terrorists released from prison, many of whom have blood on their hands. This deal is not guaranteed to succeed, even if it's approved, even if its implementation starts. It is likely to see some stumbling blocks along the way, because every single step is always met with stumbling blocks on any deal. But let's start with the Philadelphia corridor. As I said before, and I'll say it again, okay, I'm not saying the Philadelphia corridor has no strategic value. It obviously does. It's a main corridor, the main access point that the Hamas used for many years to smuggle in everything from food to medical supplies, which is, they didn't need to smuggle those things in, but they did, to weapons, of course, and things that they were strictly forbidden from having. And they brought them in anyway. And Egypt knew. Egypt, which is supposed to be at peace with Israel, did literally nothing to stop the Hamas from using these illegal tunnels. And Israel knew that it was happening, but was unwilling to do what it had to do for many years to stop it. That said, if during the active kinetic part of this war, it was so important, right, so vital to advance the interests of Israel and stop the war, then why did the government of Israel not order the IDF to take the Philadelphia corridor for the first 9 months of the war? That's more than half the length of the war so far. Why did it wait for 9 months to take the Philadelphia corridor? It makes no logical sense to say it was strategically so vital and then wait for 3/4 of a year to actually take it. They could have taken it that same day, right? It's not a very big strip of land. It's relatively easy for the IDF to take it. Now, of course, it's still dangerous, right? I mean, or it was. It's dangerous to take it because there are all kinds of snipers and, Palestinian forces there with potentially tons of IEDs laying in wait and all kinds of surprise attacks. It's not like it's risk-free to take it, but relatively not the most difficult thing to take a road, okay? To secure control over a road. Israel has the kinetic ability to do that, no problem. And it did relatively easily when the time came, 9 months after the war started. So when people say giving back the Philadelphia corridor is bad, yeah, it's not a great thing. But again, if it was that important to hold it, then why did they wait so long to take it? And the answer is, there isn't a good answer. The answer is because Israel did not think it was necessary for the first 9 months of the war to take it. Otherwise, they would have taken it. Period. End of story. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Now, the second part, right, is if this deal goes through, you'll have elements of the Israeli government that will withdraw from the government, potentially putting the government at risk from falling apart before the deal is fully implemented. Well, consider who those elements are. They are extreme right, members of the Israeli government. And when I say extreme, I mean the leaders of it have actually previously been charged with and convicted of terrorism. Okay? Ben Gvir has been convicted of acts of terrorism and is now a member of the cabinet, and a leading member of the cabinet at that. Is that a bad thing? In my opinion, yeah, it's a very bad thing. But if he leaves the government, it will destabilize the government and could possibly make the government fall apart. Now, do I care if the government falls apart? No, Israel's government is fully capable of, reestablishing itself after it falls apart. It happens all the time. Right? There are no confidence votes and snap elections on a pretty frequent basis in Israel, so that's not a problem. The problem is, if it happens, then elections will be had fairly soon, and the outcome of those elections could be a very bad thing, because you could have more extreme forces in power. I'm going to head into a... Okay. Is it possible that this deal could still end up being a good thing? Yeah, it's possible. But there's no guarantees, right? When it comes to politics, there really are no guarantees. It could end up being a very bad deal. There's no way to pretend otherwise. Then it comes to the hostages, right? And the fact is, the hostages easily... That's funny. Beers and whiskey and crackers, bourbon and crackers. Stumbling block where people otherwise expect it to succeed, and it won't. As I walk by people, there's people here talking about normal day-to-day life stuff, because that's normally what people talk about. Normal day-to-day life stuff, because that's normally what people talk about. And there's also people talking about the situation and the deal. There's an active discussion. It is obviously on the minds of the average citizen here. So, Now the question is, what exactly will play out? Well, what exactly will play out? Well, there really are. Personally, I'm not surprised that some supporters who support Israel are disappointed. But, I mean, this is what I warned you about. Right? If you think he's just going to come in and wave a magic wand and that the conflict would probably, end, you got another thing coming. This should really not be a surprise to anyone who's observant of the situation. This is absolutely not a surprise. This is quite frankly the opposite of a surprise. So, with the situation, what people don't want to play out. It's going to be a case of not just a bitter pill, but frankly a disaster that is just going to play out precisely as predicted by Jewish children, which the situation is going to lead to more the same. I'll be back in a minute or two. We'll be getting out of here in a minute. 5. And then I'll continue. You all enjoy the random background sounds. Maybe I should turn that off so this video doesn't get copyright claimed, or I don't know what, by the background music playing on the speaker system. I'll do that. And I'll just show you guys some beautiful floor tiling. I don't know if you can hear this or not. And there I am. In another minute, I should be out of here. Hopefully the background noise won't be so bad. And I'll be able to carry this on to wrap up the commentary that I had. Okay. So we'll finish this up soon. I just need your patience a little bit longer, another 2 minutes before I get into it. If you're wondering why I don't just continue here, it's because I don't think you can probably hear me properly, but if you can actually hear me, a sign in the comments and I will continue if you can hear me. But if not, then I should be back in another 2 minutes or so to carry on with this. Okay. Hold on, go there. Gotta pack some goodies. Back out. All right. So, Philadelphia route. Philadelphia corridor, bad. But again, if it was necessary, why did they leave it not in the control of the IDF for 9 months? Why did they leave it in the hands of Hamas? Hostages, not all coming back. Very potentially bad for causing the deal to fail, because they may not all come back. And by the time the deal falls through, there could still be the vast majority of hostages still in the hands of Hamas, which is anyway going to be the situation after phase 1, even if the whole phase is implemented. Right? Then there has to be a phase 2, which there's no guarantee of that happening. And there are still the majority of hostages in the hands of Hamas at that point. Meanwhile, the Hamas will have time to regroup, recruit, rearm, resupply, and prepare for the next round of fighting, which will just cause more Israeli soldiers and civilians to be at risk. But obviously mostly soldiers, because they're actively in the kinetic firing zone. But civilians who live in the Gaza envelope will also be in danger, as they usually are, from rocket fire. You know, this war has not seen an end, a complete and total end to the rocket fire that's been happening in the Gaza envelope. So there's no guarantee that any such deal will bring them peace and quiet, which they've not had now for 25 years, which is ridiculous. Think about it. If you lived in an area where there were 33,000 rockets fired at you over a period of 25 years, and then top that off with an active war launched in the most barbaric way against people who, frankly, most of the people living in that area were directly affected by that, especially those living in the moshavim and kibbutzim, right? The moshavs or the kibbutzes. They were overwhelmingly far-left supporters. They were overwhelmingly people who supported a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians and actively did everything they could to help the Palestinians of Gaza, right? Many of them bringing them food and aid and bringing them to Israeli hospitals when necessary, or vouching for them to come and work in their kibbutzes and moshavs, right? Their collective farms, basically. So these were people who supported the idea of a two-state solution, and they were betrayed by the very people that were supposed to be peace-seeking Palestinians, who ended up being spies, mapping out the kibbutzes and the moshavs, and now that trust is gone, and probably will not come back for a very long time, if ever, whether there's a peace deal or not. Forget ceasefire. Ceasefire is not going to do it. Ceasefire is just going to prolong the situation and cause further bloodshed. Mark my words, that's it. I mean, I've said it already. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? It is going to happen. We're going to see this war continue to be a nightmare for the people of Israel, and frankly for the Palestinian people who actually don't want a war. It's not good for anybody. The only people that this serves are the extremists. The extremists, you can say, well, it serves the extremists in Israel. Hi. Hey, how are you?
Good.
Yeah? You here with your brother? Right on. Cool, good to see you. High five. Can you give me a high five? High five. Haha. Hey, John. Cool, high five. Nice one. Ran into some munchkins today. You guys having fun?
Yeah. We're waiting for Zion.
Yeah. I'm waiting for my munchkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I'm waiting for my kids.
You waiting for who?
For my friends.
Oh, okay. They're here? Yeah, right.
And we were kids.
Yeah. Now it's a weekend. Yeah. And there's some cute munchkins that I know. And yeah, so this deal is just generally bad. What can I say? I am not looking forward to seeing this thing get implemented. I wish I were. Now, I am looking forward to the hostages coming home. I think everybody in their right mind wants hostages to come home. But I want all of them home, not just 33 of them after 6 weeks. They should all be coming home at once. And Israel should be doing whatever it can to force the kinetic surrender and the unconditional surrender of the Hamas and their removal from power. And the fact that they're not means that they're once again caving to outside political pressure for whatever reasons. And there are many, and I've discussed some of them in this video. And they fell for the big lie, which I've been warning you guys about, dropping not so subtle hints, telling you for more than a year now that we are likely to see a bad deal, if anything. And unfortunately, I was right. And I told you guys, I hope I'm wrong. But there's a greater than zero probability, and in fact, a very high probability that I'm not. And what do you know? I'm not. Why? Because like many people, I'm able to read the map and tell you what is actually likely to happen in this muddled East. Now, can things change between now and the time the deal is implemented? Can the situation be improved? Yes, it could happen. Is it likely? Not so much. Not in this case. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys about it later. Have a great day, and peace.
Ground beef.